Hey there. Okay, so today I've got something a little bit interesting for you guys to look at. This is not your typical zoo list, obviously. You're not running things like Wild Noctowl. You're not running things like Curdape or Loom Lions. You are running E1, you are running Burning Tree Emissary, you are running Flinthoof Boar, but you're running a lot of things on the side of that you're not normally running in Zoo. And why is that in this version? Well, this is the list that you can make for about $50. And that's the reason why you're omitting a lot of these sort of classic Zoo staples. The truth is, with the mana base like this, you cannot successfully and reliably get off Curdape, Loom Lion, Wild Noctowl. You can kind of get away with it with Flinthoof Boar, but it's much less reliable. So to make up for that, you are not having creatures with the biggest butts, aka not the most stable creatures in the world, but you are still using very, very aggressive creatures. If you take a look at what we've got right here, which is this is the mana base that we've got. We've got 3 mountains, we've got 4 forests, and those are your basic bread and butter. But on the sides, we also have 1 plains, and that's more for getting Path to Exiled. You definitely want the access to the red and the green before you want access to white. But you've also got things like Razor Verge Thicket, Copperline Gorge. These are all the fast lands, and there are 4 each of them. You can't get around this. You're going to need some kind of stable mana base. This is the best thing you can do in an aggro deck because it doesn't come into play tapped. And yes, they cost anywhere from $2 to $5 a piece, but they are very much needed. And when you look at this, I'm not really running any other rares aside from this. So it's worth spending a little bit more on the mana base to keep it a little bit more stable. Again, I'd suggest fetches and shocks, but if that's out of your budget, then fast lands are your next best opportunity. You'll see that we've got the Carp Forests and the Brushlands. These are basically your leftover flex spots. I put them in there because they're only about $1 rare. They've been reprinted about 1 million times, so you should be able to get away with it. You could run M10 lands on that too, like Sunpetal Grove, and you can be running things like what do you call it, Rootbound Crag. But these will more reliably get you your mana. They're going to come into play untapped, and they're also going to go ahead and even though they'll pain you, you're the aggro person, so it doesn't really matter. So let's look over creatures right now. There are 30 creatures in this deck list. We've got 4 Experiment 1, which is our core right here. So Experiment 1 evolves off of anything that's bigger than it entering the battlefield, and we're going to be playing a lot with multicolors here, which help us with a worser mana base, as well as the fact that these guys have static abilities, so they come in bigger. So that's on our 1 spot. We've got Experiment 1. That's going to be the first one we're looking at. Now let's look at Dryad Militant. Dryad Militant is kind of cool. It does some cool stuff against like Snapcaster Mage, or solid 4 of. But the big thing is that it costs 1 flexible mana, and that it's a 2/1. Next, we've got Rakdos Cackler. Again, 1 flexible mana, which is just red in this deck. But it will come into play as a 2/2 evolving E1. And that's it for our 1-drops. I tried to fit Curdape in there, but with the mana base as it is, I really could not fit it in. If you want to, you could cut things like the Woolly Thoctars and maybe 2 Naya Hushblades for 2 more, 2 to 4 more 1-drops in the list, and if you could do anything that's a bit more pricey, go for it. If not, you've got things like the Soldier of Pantheon was a good one, or any of those 2/1 attackers that are 1 mana. I'd preferably say something in the green or the red. Moving on to our 2 mana base, we're going to look at the girl that ties the entire 2 converted mana costs together. That's Burning Tree Emissary. Now, Burning Tree Emissary's got flexible mana. It's got these again the hybrid mana, and it can be casted off of 2 reds. It can be casted off of 2 greens. It can be casted off of 1 green and a red. That's perfect when you're in a struggling situation and you need that red-green so that you can cast the other cards in your hand to make up for the worser mana base. Again, pretty much everything in this deck is multicolored, and there's a real strong reason for that. And the reason why is over here with the Jund Hawkblade and the Naya Hushblades. Now, these guys are going to enter generally as a 3/2. This one's the better one. It's got 3/2 with Haste. This one is a 3/2 with Shroud. That will still evolve your E1. That's important to note, that it will still evolve your E1. And that's going to go ahead and apply more pressure and more damage to your damage output. On the flip side, we've also got a Flint Hoofboar, who is the easier of the two, again, because it costs, you're generally casting it around turn 3, because it's got the 1-2 mana to play it, and then 1 to gain haste. So it will still evolve E1 once, it'll still evolve E1 twice, generally, but since it's around turn 3, you've probably found your mountain and you're good. Not to mention, you'll probably be Path to Exile, but at least once. So this Flint Hoofboar is generally a 3/3 and is one of the stronger creatures in the deck. To bring up the whole pack, we've got 2 Woolly Thoctars. If you're running Naya colors and you can't afford any other 3 CMC beaters, Woolly Thoctar is the way to go. It is a 5/4, which is huge for 3 mana. It will evolve E1 into a 5/5 if possible. That thing is huge. Next, we're going to look at our removal suite. And our soft removal suite, which is Lightning Bolt, strong 4 of. This is cheap. You can get it for $1 a piece at most if you don't already have it lying around. Pillar of Flames are cheap. They're really good against your worst enemy, which is Finks, so it's a strong 3 of. There are other 3 damage, 1 mana spells, but this is going to have the most utility in it, especially to get rid of Finks. And then Rancor over here brings up your pack, making your hasty guys, and you do have a lot of haste. You have haste here, and it'll make your smaller beaters way more efficient too, as being strong beaters. And with so many creatures in the deck, Rancor, if it comes back into your hand, will continually be a beating. So again, take one more look at the list. This is it in written form. If you need just the numbers again, go ahead and pause the video if you need it. If not, I'm going to go ahead and connect here and play a quick game showing what this deck can do. Now, I'm not saying this deck is the most competitive deck in the world. If you're buying any modern deck for about $50, you're looking at a less competitive rogue deck. It's just the way this goes. As modern cards go on in time, they generally become more expensive. There's a lot of things in Standard you might have lying around that you could add to that list to make it better. If you want to really get the better list, I would say the Gruul Zoo list that I listed for $200 or $500 are your better option. So that's my suggestion if you're going to go ahead and try to jump into Zoo. But if you really want to get the Zoo feel without spending any of the price tag whatsoever for a Tier 1 deck, then you're going to want to think about this one. It's $50. It's really cheap. Your entire main deck, not including lands, is all uncommons, basically. Yeah, uncommon, commons, uncommon, common. So you've got a ton of commons. The only rare cards are your mana base, and really this is the cheapest mana base I could think of off the top of my head. So let's see, roll a 4. It's not a good 4, kinda. All right, we tied. We roll 15 and we win. So that's cool. Alright, we've got a pretty good hand here. We've got an Experiment 1 to a Burning Tree Emissary into a Jund Hackblade, so we're going to be swinging for at least 6 damage on turn 1. And that's a good sign. Oh, yeah, we are still, because Burning Tree Emissary fixes our mana, so we're going to keep that. It's a temporary fix at the Burning Tree Emissary mana fix. We definitely want to have access to this Lightning Bolt, but it's doable. It's doable. So he's playing blue, which means he's slower anyways, and that's giving us a really big boom right here to go Burning Tree Emissary, Jund Hackblade. That's a 3/2 right away. And then we're going to go ahead and set counter to 2. 3/3, and attack for 6 right now. Oh, that's a pretty awesome start right away, even though we don't have access to the red mana to finish it up. Wall of Omens is a pretty good card here. I mean, it blocks for a while. Not like we're rampaging or anything. But we've got Naya Hushblade here to add more damage output. And we're going to swing for a crap ton. I think that's the actual measure, is a crap ton. It's actually probably closer to 7, which means that he goes down to 7. Unless he's got a 3-mana board wipe here, which he could. Pyroclasm will do it. It's pretty good game already, I'd say. All without any red mana. I think the Bant one's unblockable, if I remember. It's 3/2 unblockable, which might be cooler than Naya Hushblade, but it demands that you have white mana, and that's something this deck has a little bit less of. Rakdos Cackler is cool. I'm going to hold it for a second. Oh, I guess I can't cast it anyways. I'm just going to go ahead and do the start thing. See what he's got. Deceiver Exarch, sure. So it might be American Twin, and we might lose. Drop him down to 5. If we had the Bolt, we would have won. So if he's got the Twinny Twin, we're gonna call that a game. You can only crack that for a basic, which is nice. Although Splinter Twin does cost 1 red, so it's not like it's a death sentence for him. So how does this work? Restoration Angel comes into play. Sure. It untaps a permanent you control. Untaps like a red, or taps down on my creatures. Gets a Wall of Omens. The red really would be what we need here. Red would just kill him if we drew a red source. Lightning Helix does it too, sure. Let's see, he can double block. He can block, I mean, still means that he's taking 5 damage. I mean, he's still taking 5 damage unless he Lightning Helixes again here. Okay, so he's not Lightning Helix. He survives unless we draw like a Rancor. Or red source. Ah, we drew a red source. That's good. We're just going to go ahead and straight up attack. He'll still take 2 damage and die. So that's what's up. That's what's up. And 3 damage. GG. Your deck cost a lot of money. Mine didn't. That's really the truth. So this is still competitive in terms of speed. That guy we played was pretty nice. I had a little conversation with him during that weird sort of cut. He's a good guy. Anyways, yeah, he was laughing at. He thought he was pretty lucky to survive past like turn 2. So that was a little bit of the craziness that can go on in this deck. It definitely still has this insane sort of explosion factor to it, especially when your Burning Tree Emissaries can be chained into not only like Dryads and Rakdos Cacklers, but also things like Naya Hushblades and Jund Hackblade. I think that's the sort of list you want to go after, is just that very strong, in-your-face kind of Naya Zoo kind of feel, even though it's got a way different creature set base, because your mana base is so off. The mana base still managed to pull it out, like you saw with my that game that I still was able to win without any red. As soon as I drew red, the game was over. And it normally isn't like that. Normally you get a lot of green and a lot of red, but sometimes I'll get more of an odd end color, which just sort of goes to show you how fetch to shocks really do fix a mana base to perfection. But if you don't, again, have the hundreds of dollars to spend on shock lands, and if you don't have the like $200 to fetch to put out on fetch lands, this is sort of the best thing you can do for $50 in my opinion. I've tested a lot of different versions. I've tested ones with Wild Noctowl. I've tested bigger zoo versions with Mana Ramp, and they've always ended up lackluster. And this one's sort of good because even though it's not the most competitive in terms of its creature base, it still has enough speed backing it up that some games it just won't matter. Some games you'll just, oops, I win. I've had too many creatures on the board. You've got no removal, and it's over. It dies way harder to Pyroclasm. That's one difference between the zoo and this $50 version of zoo. Pyroclasm does not affect full zoo at all, while it will kill this one right off the bat. But you do have a lot of damage output. It's just it's a huge damage output that you're doing. And it's only $50, so I don't think you can. If you got $50 to spend on an FNM and you just want to play something that's like aggressive and in your face, this could be the way to go. And if you're trying to slowly, eventually evolve it into a normal zoo, this could be a good start. First thing you want to do is again get that fetch land, shock, or even just shocks. Having four of all the Naya shocks will get you there. But this is a great place to start. So thanks for watching, guys.